Hi, guys. I'm Sarah, and I serve here at Victory in the church office. We're so glad that you tuned in to today's message, and I believe that something in this sermon is going to help encourage you and help you take the next step forward in your faith journey. Before we get into it, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that way you never miss a video. Now let's hear from the sermon.
For those who are visiting today, if this is your first time or second time here, my name is Tim Gerdes. I'm the pastor here. And so just on behalf of our community, thank you for being here today. There's no greater story than the story of Jesus Christ. And today, it may not be familiar to you. It's a day we call Palm Sunday. And Palm Sunday was the day where Jesus rode into Jerusalem on the colt of a donkey, and this was actually a coronation type ceremony where the people were excited and they came out. Only that the week ends with his death and his crucifixion, but ends next week with the resurrection of his body and the resurrection of his life, and which was going to be changes everything. But when I think about that first Palm Sunday, when the people came out in the crowds, and then like how the week would eventually turn out and go, I can't imagine the kinds of emotions that Jesus, his followers, really went through. You know, there's a movie, a pretty relatively new movie in the last couple of years, Spider-Man No Way Home. Anybody? Spider-Man No Way Home? Yeah, I've watched all the Marvel movies, and because that's what we do. We love Spider-Man in our house. We've got boys. We love these movies. And if you're not familiar with the genre at all, there's every now and then, not exactly known for their writing, but there's a key moments and little pieces here and there that are just, to me, mind-blowing because it just sucks you in and it connects you right with the content and what's happening in the movie. There's this scene where Peter Parker is talking with his girlfriend MJ, and they're talking about fresh starts. They're moving on, they're graduating from high school, they're going to college, and this is the time just to be able to start over, like reinvent yourselves, just to have these beautiful new moments. But she says this, she stops him, and she says, though, if you expect disappointment, then you could never really get disappointed. And that's all she says. But I remember listening to that, and I really didn't need to hear anymore because I don't know what her life was like. They don't go into details, but you can tell this is a person who has been let down by life. And I think all of us can know that feeling of being let down by life. Being let down by someone or something or circumstances. And I think we've all felt that sting. And disappointment breeds distrust, and it dims our confidence and our hope for the future. And today, as we're closing our series on He Chose the Nails, this is the Sunday we're talking about how Jesus chose to give us confidence. And now we're not talking about self-confidence because we know self-confidence wavers. Some days I feel great, some days I don't. But this is the confidence that we know God, that Jesus is true and we trust and will not let us down, and that we can follow him with confidence. See, on that day, as they're out celebrating, they're confident. But they're not confident in Jesus. They're not confident necessarily in God. They're confident in this guy who has performed miracles, that he will set things straight. And what I mean by that, set things straight, is here's a king who will do what's good for me and how I see it should be done. He will set everything right. You see, there's this moment where, as the story goes, as Kay read it for us today, Jesus tells his disciples, go find this colt of a donkey. Go and untie it. And if anybody asks you about, if the owner comes out and says, hey, that's mine, what are you doing? Just tell them that the Lord needs it. And again, if you're a movie buff and you like Star Wars, you may think he pulls a Jedi mind trick on them. Just tell them that the Lord needs it. And then he just says, okay, and lets it happen. But it's not that at all. Actually, it's this moment when he hears the word, the Lord needs it. They know exactly who he's talking about, because the people came out in the crowds because they'd heard about all the miracles. They heard about the feeding of the 5,000, the feeding of the 4,000. They've heard of people being raised from the dead. They've heard of the miraculous healings. They've heard of all these things. They knew he was the Messiah. So if the Lord needs it, and if the Lord needs this colt on this donkey, this means this is a coronation ceremony. Now, you and I wouldn't understand that at all, but for the people, they are reminded from the Old Testament prophecies as following in the lines of King Solomon, David's son. When he took the throne, he came into the city riding on the colt of a donkey. And so the people come out. They're ready for this coronation. And that's why they're calling him not just Messiah. Notice they're calling him King. And they come out and they throw their clothes, they throw their cloaks and their jackets on the ground, rolling out the red carpet. And this is what people did. When the conquering kings would come, they would roll out the red carpet for them, and they waved palm branches in the air as a symbol of victory. And they went out and they cheered. But then by Saturday, their confidence is gone. All their hopes, all their dreams were gone. One, it was just another leader who didn't live up to the hope. You know, in the book of Psalms, in Psalm 146, God says this. He says, "Do not put your trust in princes, in human beings who cannot save. When their spirit departs, they return to the ground. And on that very day, their plans come to nothing." He's just another one of those guys. They rallied around him, and now he's gone. But not just gone, but also proof that the little guy can't win. Because who won that day? The religious leaders, the elite, the political people, the rich, all the people who had the power won again. The oppressors won. It was supposed to all change. But then, like we just said, and we just sang, we know the end of the story, he got up. And in that getting up changes everything. See, Jesus didn't just talk about, he just didn't talk about this in theory. See, long before Holy Week, he told his disciples already what was going to happen. He told his disciples that he is going, very plainly, he's going to have to suffer, that he's going to be rejected, and that he is going to die. And the disciples resisted him. They resisted him. They were confused. They were heartbroken. And this just doesn't make sense to them. And it never makes sense when someone chooses suffering over self-preservation. It just doesn't make sense to us. And then Jesus says something very interesting to them. He said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul?" The disciples struggled with this because it's counterintuitive. It's all about self-preservation. It's all about what's good for me. It's all about what's good for my family, the ones I love. It's all about what that good is, that we have to take care of ourselves. It's upside down, but then you look at what did Jesus do? He did that. And he got up. Human leaders we have will tell you how they'll solve all of your problems without actually fixing you. All the problems that aren't you. And then he gives that speech, and honestly, it's a horrible campaign speech. It's horrible. But then he gets up. Nobody else does. So the question is then for us, this forces us to think through it as we're thinking of what's going on this week and what's going to be happening this week. Do you follow, and it could be you, sometimes we follow ourselves and what we think is right and best. Do you follow somebody else whose life ultimately ends in death, or do you follow the one whose death actually ends in life? Who we follow? The resurrection then is what gives us confidence that Jesus is the one to follow. Again, not confidence in ourselves to achieve our dreams, our goals and our accomplishments, but confidence in him to follow a very difficult path, but in following that path to discover what real life looks like, fueled by his power, but not ours. And the path that Jesus took was not easy. We follow, he says, carry your cross. So we have to watch him as he carries his cross. What does it mean to follow him? You know, this week will show us just how hard it was. I think about Good Friday or Thursday, that period between Good Friday and Monday, Thursday, and Good Friday, where Jesus is overwhelmed. He's in the Garden of Gethsemane. What he was facing was going to be extremely difficult. When we follow Jesus, we are faced with things that could and will be very, very difficult, and things that you do not want to do. It could be something simple as forgiving someone, forgetting something, somehow moving on towards things, forgiving yourself, all those things. To look at the world in a different light, to love everyone, and knowing that you could get hurt for it. Jesus was overwhelmed in the garden because he didn't want to do it. And he prayed, Father, I don't want to do this. Please take this cup of suffering. That's what they called it, the idea of drinking the poison pill for all of humanity. He would experience the thorns. He could experience the nails. He understood that he is going to be humiliated when they stripped him naked on the cross. He took the thorns, the pain of this suffering, the pain of this world. He took the cross, the humiliation, and all. And he did not want to do it. But instead of rescuing him from it, the Father strengthened him for it. And one of those beautiful moments in that garden that night, after he prayed this, and it says he was sweating, he was so stressed out that he was actually, you can break the capillaries in your body and your skin. So he's sweating, it says drops of blood. He was under that much stress. But it says the Father strengthened, the angels strengthened him, and then Judas came in, pulling in the soldiers behind him, ready to betray him. And it says Jesus stood up and said, let's go. Triumphed, already knowing he's already won. Let's go, it's go time. Because the Lord strengthened him for that moment. So we follow him. So whatever it is maybe you're dealing with, let's see how the Lord strengthens you for the moment, not to avoid it, but to face it head on. And then we'll watch Jesus as he does all the things, and we see him react and how he responds to these people who are persecuting, to the people who are lying about him, to the people who are just yelling things at him and beating him, people he doesn't know who are jumping on top of him. How does he respond to it all? We get to see that. But not just see it, we get to be inspired on how to follow him, because it's the world in which we live. But not just that, not just to live it and die to yourselves, but then to discover true life and the life that God has given you. So often we try to fix ourselves. There's thousands of self-help books out there telling you how to be a better you. And you may be successful at certain things and changing some behaviors and things, but do you ever really get life out of it? Can you ever really get there? Can you ever really be good enough? There's a story in one of my favorite book series when I was growing up. It was called The Chronicles of Narnia. How many of you are at least familiar with it? Okay, thank you. You guys did better than 8 o'clock service. I saw 2 people, so the story's good, so it went, but anyway, so if you're at least familiar with it. And there's this story in the 3rd book, it's called The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. And it's written by a Christian author, C.S. Lewis, and he puts a lot of symbolism to tell the story of Jesus, the story of God, in just another creative way. And in it, there's a character by the name of Eustace. It's an English book, okay? Eustace, I've never heard that name ever before or again. And in this, he becomes a dragon, not through somebody casting a spell on him, but because of his own selfishness, his greed, and his bitterness towards life and people slowly turned him into one. It reflected what was going on inside. Some of you, we know what that means, because we know when the pains and the hurts of life bitter, it impacts how we are and how people even perceive us. So he finally sees himself and what's going on inside. And then he realizes how lost he is. He starts to realize what he had become. And he desperately tries to fix himself. He claws at his own dragon skin, trying to peel it off. And he's successful for a period of time, because like lizards, they molt, they get rid of a layer of skin, they get rid of one. Then he's able to get rid of another one, but then there is just too much. He could not do it. For a moment, it looks like it might work, but under each layer, there's just another one. And he couldn't go far enough to get deep inside the skin enough to really, really change. He couldn't do it. Then Aslan, the great lion who represents Jesus in the story, he steps in and he tells Eustace, "You'll have to let me do it." Now, when we watch Jesus on the cross, when we watch him, you see him do it and what he does for us. And the great lion takes his claws and rips his chest open. He said, the very first tear he made was so deep that I thought it had gone right into my heart. And when he began pulling the skin off, it hurt worse than anything I've ever felt. But after the pain came freedom. The dragon skin was gone, and he was a boy again, restored, changed, made new. And in his theology there, he said, okay, now that you've been made clean, go take a bath like in the waters of baptism, and you'll be made new and come out clean, restored and given the life back that you actually never had. And you'll be made new. That's what Jesus does. And we get to watch that happen this week. You'll be challenged. There'll be times it'll hurt. There'll be times of introspection where you kind of have to go, yeah, that was me, how I handled this and how I handled that. There are going to be times when you're like, man, I lived selfishly. I lived for me and my self-preservation, but how do I actually, when you examine it according to what he has done, and it's always this invitation from Jesus to say, follow me. How to handle this, how to work through this, and follow me. Not just to fix the surface problems, not just to solve our circumstantial issues. He came to get underneath the layers, to reach the parts of us that we can't fix on our own. And yes, that healing can hurt. Surrender can feel like loss. But on the other side is transformation. And the life to discover by denying your life and then receiving your life. Giving your life and then getting it back in a different way. Palm Sunday isn't just about a king who rescues. It's also about a king who knows exactly what he's rescuing us from. And he's willing to go all the way to the cross, to take the nails, to do it. So today, if you're tired of trying to fix yourself, if you've been peeling away after layer after layer after layer and still feel stuck, hear the voice of the lion. Let him do what only he can do. And the same Jesus who rode in Jerusalem to the cheers of a crowd is the same Jesus who went to that cross. And remember, he got up. So who are you going to follow? The life that leads to death or the death that leads to life? Where do you find your confidence? And as hard as it may be, as painful it can be, he's the only one who got up. Only one. So I really want to encourage you that this week, don't just think, oh, now we've got Palm Sunday, and then, oh, we're going to jump over everything, and we're going to get to eggs and breakfast, right, next week. No, there's a lot of stuff that happens in between here. A lot happens. I really encourage you to come join us on Thursday for our Maundy Thursday. Now, I didn't say Monday Thursday, I said Maundy Thursday, because Maundy is a Latin word that means new command, where Jesus told his disciples, a new command I am giving you, to love one another as I have loved you. How much did he love us? By giving up his life for us, to love one another, to forgive one another as we've been forgiven. And we're going to talk about that because we do struggle with that. And you see this group of disciples who's all going to be a mess. You can see, watch this whole thing play out. And how sin and things can separate us. But how do you come back from sin in relationships? We're going to talk about it. We're going to see that happen on Monday, Thursday, 6:30 p.m. If you can RSVP, that would be great, but you're not going to get turned away from that event. So 6:30, our dinner program. Friday, Good Friday, 7 o'clock. We're going to have our service online and in person. And this is just a meaningful time where you get to see Jesus in handling the adversity, to say things like, he's being nailed to the cross. They're beating him up. All the things are happening to him unfairly. And he has the wherewithal to say, Father, forgive them. And they don't know what they're doing right now. To learn how to forgive people, because a lot of times they just don't know what they're doing. They don't know they're hurting you. They don't know. Something's happening, but how do you forgive and how do you move on? And that's just one example. And then, of course, come for Easter. You don't have to come all day, but there's lots of opportunities. 6 o'clock in the morning, right outside, and it's just this beautiful moment where you gather around the fire. You gather around the fire, we sing some songs together, we read the story of Jesus getting up. What a great way to start your day. 8 o'clock, then we have our traditional service over in the church. We have our 11 o'clock service right here. And then we have our Easter egg hunt at 10. That's a great time. And when we say it's at 10, it's at 10. So if you're like a family that kind of like, hey, it's all right, it'll still be going on at 10:05. No, you don't understand like how those kids, just like the locusts, come and blow it out right there. So it's a day you want to get there early. If you're planning on coming for the Easter egg hunt, just get here a few minutes early. Enjoy some breakfast because it'll be being served. Our youth will be serving breakfast that day and as part of their fundraising. So come on out for a great breakfast, and then don't miss that time. Don't miss the start time. And we'll have a great time together then at 11 o'clock. Then we have our services right here. But it's a great time of celebration, of joy, of hope, and community. That's the day that everything changed. Then last but not least, invite someone. Invite someone. Not a lot of people come to an event because they saw a flyer. It's because they know someone. You invite someone. If you know somebody in your world, in your life that, man, needs a fresh start, that needs some good news in their life, just invite them. Just invite them. Share them to your socials, all the stuff that comes out, but send a message them, whatever, but just invite someone. And whether you're full of faith or just still figuring this out, like the Maundy Thursday one, I remember last year we had our students, although we have a number of students who participate in that, and one of our students brought his mom. She came for it, and she was like, I've never heard this story before. She never heard about the night that Jesus was church, which we sometimes take for granted. Invite someone. Just for eggs. Usually you'll come out for eggs. Real and plastic, you'll come out for eggs. But invite someone to come walk the road with us.